Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Gore Call, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives after they put out important news. With us today for his first interview of 2022, Bernard Tourillon, CEO, HPQ Silicone, trades in Canada under HPQ. For our friends in the US, HPQFF. For those new to the story, we know that more and more are joining you. HPQ is a Canadian producer building a portfolio of unique, high-value specialty silicon products needed for the upcoming renewable energy revolution. More than just lip service, the company has already received their first order for spherical nanosilicon material from a global major automobile manufacturer. None of us know who it is. They've got an NDA with at least 2 battery players, and they've got 2 reactors, their main quartz reduction reactor and their nanosilicon reactor. And what we're talking about today, very importantly, is an update on the HPQ nanosilicon reactor. Bernard, welcome to the show. Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year.
We're doing this because Newfie36 on CEO said, perhaps we need a video with George. So Newfie, you asked or you stated it, you're getting it. Bernard, right off the bat, your quote says, once final adjustments are completed, expect in January, the system will be ready to produce new samples for third-party evaluation. Man, how close is HPQ to being at that point?
Pretty close. We're getting there. It's a question of, you check the marks. We reach a goal, we check the mark. The reality of doing what we're doing, and it's an R&D project, is that once you start, okay, you're not exactly sure when it's going to end, but the only thing I do know with certainty is working with Pyro, we are going to reach destination and succeed, okay? So I'm not worried about that part. So I think it's, like, I'm not trying to be evasive, but I'm not trying to put a hard date because some people take hard date as something specific. But as soon as possible, I would love to have that milestone reach, and for us to get the validation from the NDAs that, okay, this material is really, really good.
And given the fact that you said January has given a lot of investors a lot of hope. By the way,
did I say the year?
What's that?
Did I say the year?
Now, for those who are new, kind of discuss the importance of the nanosilicon reactor and why this update is important. We know we can't cover all of it, but usually what we're talking about and what everyone's been waiting for is the PUREVAP quartz reduction reactor, the QRR. But just if you can quickly, what's the importance of the nanosilicon reactor?
Okay, the importance of nanosilicon reactor is really this. The market for the primary market we are looking at is to make silicone material that will use by anode manufacturers for the battery space. Okay, and that market is going to go explode through the roof because of the simple reality that if governments are talking by 2030, we're supposed to be, there'll be no more fuel car gas you can buy. Everybody wants an electric car. The solution is to go to silicone with graphite and eventually with full silicone into it. And you need to be able to make that material cheap. Okay, the technology exists to make them. Okay, there are companies making it right now. There's some people using it. HPQ's philosophy with Pyro is that we looked at what happened in the solar industry, which was that too many people focus on being the first, okay? The first one to get contract, but then when the price came in, because there's going to be people that are going to look at ways of cutting down the price and killing you on the price area. So from the beginning, I have approached Pyro with a simple philosophy. We always want to be the cheapest manufacturers of the material. So I'll let the other ones develop the industry, okay? And then I'll take it away from them because I have a cheaper product. And you're
still confident that you're still in that position? Because look, it's been a while. There are a lot of other people in the world working on this, right? You're still highly confident that you guys are still the cheapest?
They're not working on what we're doing, okay? This is something that few people don't understand. There are tons of people working silicone for batteries. I grant you that, okay? But what these guys do, okay, is that they buy silicone Si from somebody, okay, figure a way to turn it into anode material, thinking this is where the money is going to be made. I was reading a document from somebody that's in this industry starting to do, says we have long-term commitment to buy our raw ingredient. But the raw ingredient is the most expensive raw ingredient, the most complicated to do, and the most dangerous to work with. Well, you can start a long-term investment. What we are looking at doing, okay, is taking raw silicone, raw Si, convert it into nanoparticles in one relatively easy step. And this is what we're doing the R&D on, so that we can have the cheapest material. Then you combine that with the fact that we make that raw silicone to be used as a feedstock, then we know we control the entire value chain. All of my competitors in the silicone industries start with buying the silicone. But that's, I understand that that's sort of like it gets to be confusing. That we're sort of a weird industry because we're an industry where we use the same name for different things. You understand what I'm saying? Like silicone, silicone. I'm having a hard time differentiating the two in the pronunciation time. There are two completely material, but they all come from the same value chain. Silane gas, but all those start at the base at silicone metal Si.
Let's talk about preliminary quote here. Preliminary results obtained with material produced during commission, since you talk about that, during commission tests complete in December are very promising. Why are they very promising?
I'll go back to this, okay? And it's sort of like understanding the philosophy behind what we did. The Gen 1 machine, okay, the first generation of the nano reactor, is designed to give us all the data we need to build a small scale proof of commercial scalability pilot plant, which we call the Gen 2. And when we started this process at the beginning, we thought it would be faster, and it's not wrong. It's neither right or wrong, it's just a reality. We thought of using the other machine, which was our Gen 2 QRR, converted to make the nanoparticles. Okay. And by the middle of the year, we started to realize that that was a major cause of our issues because of one machine was designed to do one thing and we're asking to do something else. So there was, there was oxygen leaking into it. And oxygen is the enemy of silicone. Si. And if you read the literature in Si for batteries, it is something very difficult and complicated to control and everything else. So once we identified the problem, okay, the guys at Pyro identified the problem, identified the solution, identified the multiple causes, and the biggest one was deemed to have been, the fact that we're using the Gen 2 QRR converted into the system didn't work. So then we just set out to design how can we fix it. So the first question we asked, can we fix the first machine and make it remove the oxygen? Or do we go back and design a completely new one, which is the irony, the internal irony is that we ended up going back with it's sort of complicated, the first generation of the QRR system to then convert it to make it the first 1.5 generation of the nanoreactors. So there's not a number, but fundamentally, we had a sort of like an off-the-shelf solution, okay? And the key point to understand is all these data points, okay, are going to allow us, once we make the qualified sample that says, okay, now we know how we're going to design the Gen 2 system, the one that's going to start producing, that's going to be the key to getting everything moving. The Gen 1 was designed to validate all the concept, make us understand everything, and produce sufficient sample to start sending it to end product buyers. So then we get feedback coming back and forth. Okay. It took us longer, but we're here. So removing the oxygen was the biggest part. Oxygen is a big problem in making nanoparticle silicone. That's why people use silane gas in oxygen-free environment to do it, and it goes back to our philosophy. we're looking at developing a low-cost process. Hopefully I didn't lose too many people in this, George.
Well, that's why we're going to keep doing those decks also, right? Because I think as we get closer and closer, it's going to be important to, do the deck so people can continue to visualize that. But I think a way to kind of sum it all up is, let's go to Peter Pascali from Pyrogenesis, his quote, because again, always third-party validation is important. Pyrogenesis, NASDAQ listed, very, very reputable company globally. And he said, notwithstanding some unexpected delays, as you've been talking about, we couldn't be prouder of where we are in developing this game-changing technology with HPQ. The fact that we're getting closer to meeting a significant challenge in the development of lithium-ion batteries for the electric vehicle market proves we're on the right track with the right partner and validates our commitment as an emerging leader in providing CO2 reduction solutions. First of all, he's saying he continues to say game-changing technology. I think that's important because you guys have talked about that before. But as you get closer and it seems like you're on the cusp, you're on the eve, you're almost there, you guys still firmly believe this is going to be game-changing.
Well, yeah, we keep doing technology review of what's being done out there, all right? And the process that we're developing, we know we're the only one developing this process. We're the only one that took this approach to the question mark for the nano part all the way to the micron part. So we feel very, very comfortable because it's really going to be a question of cost, all right? And that's really our drive, okay, is to be the cost leader. This being said, I'm not going to be the cheapest seller, but I will be the cost leader. I intend to make sure that the benefit of our technologies goes to our shareholders, but does not go to the shareholders of the battery manufacturers.
Something that people have been asking about the vertical integration. We've seen a couple of places. You're selling your quartz mine, which is kind of like the genesis of all this, right? I think I know the answer. I know the answer, but I think it's worth just talking about for a second. If you're selling your quartz mine, how are you vertically integrated? Because you're saying, quote, by controlling the entire chain from raw materials, the company can modify the entire process and adapt the feed material required for the nanoreactor's production to meet end market requirements. Are you losing the raw material part of this chain?
No, I think I've explained it many, many times, but I'll be happy to explain it again. Quartz is the cheapest part of the chain. Okay? It's the least expensive raw material. And it is not the only raw material required to convert to make silicone, okay? Si. You need quartz, you need
quite the ringtone. That's okay.
Yeah, I know, but it's a specific investors, and when he rings me, but that was sort of funny. So that's how I know who it is. It's no big issue. I don't even need to look at it. It's like special people get special ringtone. There's some people that go worse one. That's okay.
Next time I'll call you during one of these interviews just to hear what the ringtone is for me. But go on about the vertical. Go on about the
okay, about the vertical. It's quartz would be a vertical integration if we were only making silicone. We're not just making Si. Quartz is not the key ingredient. Well, it is one of the key ingredients, but actually your carbon source in traditional process is more important, okay? What's gonna be special is with the QRR, what we can do, okay, is we can tailor-made the end product between 99 to 4N material, depending on what the people needed. We can also make a feedstock that is going to be specifically dedicated to what battery end player wants. Okay? That gives us the feedstock control. And we'll also be the cheapest manufacturers, as I've talked about, because our processing requires less raw material, more efficient, and all those concepts into it. So if you look at the entire, and I'm talking the entire silicone for battery industry, okay? All of my competitors or not really competitor, but they're slash competitor slash client. Okay. All my competitors going to have to become my clients. As weird as it is, because they say they're in the silicone industry and they're making silicone material for anode. They're mixing graphite. They're doing all those things together. But at the end, they're going to need a consistent supplier of the material. Sorry. So they're going to need a consistent supplier of material, okay, that can deliver at a price for a long term, that we can basically work with every one of them, okay? If you are just a nanosilicone manufacturer and you buy your silicone, okay, then you're going to end up having to do two things. You're going to have either to partner up with the big boys that eventually wants to buy you to integrate vertically into it. They're going to try to buy you at the cheapest cost possible. Or you're going to be stuck not having control over your raw material. Raw material, which is SI, okay, is going to be the key to SI for batteries. Now, we already control that part because of our other technology. And that we've been working at it for 5 years. And we're coming to market this year with the validation that technology works. So from the beginning, we will be very well positioned to start doing this. And that's a material that people are going to want, because nobody can do what we're doing, which is 2N plus easily. And we could probably even go to 5N, maybe even 6N. I know some ways to tweak it to go get to 6N, not for solar, but for other specific applications. So I think I even mentioned that, you know, just because we're making 4N, we got approached by other type of markets. So when I talk about vertical integration, I'm talking the silicone for battery space, okay? We will control the SI feedstock, and we will then convert it into the nanoparticles. All my competitors have to buy their silicone to try to make a material that's going to work. So this is where we have an incredible advantage. And that's going to be an advantage that big, small, medium-sized players are going to need, because they have specific.
It almost sounds, I know we've been talking about this for a long time, but as we get closer and closer, it almost sounds too good to be true that everybody, that HPQ Silicon is going to be the only company in that position.
Maybe like being the only company might be a big word, but we're going to be the only one that's going to be able to offer tailor-made, okay? Like there is another company that does from the beginning to the end in that battery space that's trying to grow into it, but they're using traditional smelters, okay? So the moment they need to do battery grade material, they need to add additional purification step at the end of their traditional process to bring that material to battery space, then convert it into the end product. So we eliminate that section immediately into it. The other thing is, there's
so I think that makes you the only. I mean, I think that because you have.
Yeah, but like somebody's going to be able to say somebody's different. So instead of saying the only, I think we're the
in a key. Okay, so you're the key,
and I'm not going to try to argue with that position till the end.
All right. Yeah, we both just said the same thing there. Speaking of the end market, we talk about this every once in a while. How does the end market looking for you? And I know you said that once you're ready, the market will just come to you. But nonetheless, any updates since we last spoke as to the end market, maybe already? Because look, we already know that you've made a sale to a global auto manufacturer. We already know you've got some NDAs out there. So obviously, you know, customers have and potential customers have come to you and potential partners. Any update there? Any change there? Any further interest in HPQ? Is that interest gaining gaining momentum?
It's gaining momentum, but I think that interest was following the same pattern that some of our shareholders were asking us, are we there yet? That's really what it is. I believe the moment we can come up with some decent, half-cell battery test results, it's gonna speed up and increase. I was just reading that there was one competitor that made a big spiel about they're going to use saline gas from REC Silicone, and they make the big announcement. Then I read 3 months later, well, they're still trying to figure out how to do the financing because the price of saline goes up. So the industry is fluid, okay, but there isn't that many solutions. There's not too many people doing it. I'm surprised that you did not pick that out in the quote, because I left it there for people of interest.
Slow, smooth, smooth as fast.
Which one is that?
Well, I have that right in front of me because I was going to say, hence why, this big race is going on around the world. Many hares, a few tortoises, and, the epic tale. And here's your quote: slow, smooth, smooth as fast. While it may have taken us longer than we had expected to get here, we are here now, ready to revolutionize nanosilicon material manufacturing for batteries, a market that is ready to explode. I probably would have used a different adjective there to describe.
Well, nanoparticles are explosive. So I thought it felt into it. No, but like explode in the sense we understand what I mean.
But was that what you were referring to? That while everyone's racing around, you've been purposely taking your time?
No, I was referring to the technical quote we put into it. The SI and the nano reactor can produce sub 150 nanometer, we told them. And I basically said, SEM imaging of the latest material produced showed that we can produce in the 10 to 15 nanometer range.
I got that. So
which is a direct application for solid state batteries developer. I thought that would be the one that people would jump on. It was coming. It wasn't coming. You were ready to say, okay, close, let's go. I got something else. I got another appointment. Come on.
No, I got it right here. So what is the importance of that? I mean, first of all, for people who don't know, and that's a lot of us, including me, how difficult is it to get to produce material between 10 and 50 nanometers?
The smaller you go, the more expensive it is supposed to be.
And let's talk about the applications. Obviously, talk about solid state batteries.
Well, yeah, it's because if you go read a bit of the literature about solid state batteries, there is silicone involved into it. And it talks a lot about needing material in that size range. So we sort of find it interesting because the test we were doing, we were dealing, how can I say, we were working more on the oxygen. We were not really focusing on adjusting the size. And we kept going smaller and smaller and smaller into the material, which we thought originally, this is when I say when you start R&D, you don't have a clue. We thought that would be the most difficult part to do. Seriously, we really thought that making it that small, making it bigger would be easier, and we've gone small. The problem is, or the reality is, since we've only been dealing with the oxygen problem, focusing this. So that's really becomes interesting. I have some solid state manufacturer that would love to have that size material samples, in a good battery grade material. And I have some that would ask a different size. Everybody has their own recipe.
I noticed that both you and Peter talk about ESG / CO2 in your quotes. Is that becoming more and more important? Like in your quote, you said, commercializing the silicon and nanosilicon materials needed to offer ESG compliant silicon materials for renewable energy revolution. And in Peter's quote, he says, again, that validates our commitment as the emerging leader in providing CO2 reduction solutions. So is that another big advantage that doesn't necessarily quantify in terms of cost or profit or, the size of the nanomaterial you can create, but is that becoming, because or is that just a coincidence you both mentioned? Because to me, it seems like it's becoming more and more important. And if so, Bernard, how big of an advantage do you guys have there over the other players that are sniffing around?
It's becoming much more important. SI, silicone, has always been sort of like, I call it like the sandwich material. It's sort of become the sandwich material. So it is used in many other things. So at one point, the end buyers really didn't care how it was made, what was the carbon content, how was the environmental implication of everything that comes into it. Now, if you want to get some green funds, if you're big companies, you want to show, you got to be able to demonstrate traceability from beginning to end of your process. So this is becoming much more important, having a completely greener process. Right now, our process is green because we're using hydroelectricity. Or if we develop a hydrogen technology, then it will be green because of that. But we're also looking at ways of making the process of the carbon reduction greener and reducing, because that becomes an advantage. The other advantage we have is complete traceability. Smaller size gives us that advantage. And I think that's going to be becoming more and more important for the financial community, because there are more and more financial tools for that. And it's going to be more and more for our end buyer situation. If you're looking at entering the battery, the battery life cycle in Europe, you got to have traceability of all your raw material, which is easy for us to have. Same thing is going to come in the US. Eventually, over time, it's going to go everywhere. So this is why ESG has suddenly made a product like silicone, which was unsexy before, because it was
prevalent.
It was prevalent, and substitution costs was small. Okay. Now substitution costs are going to be higher, and in the battery space, and substitution costs become, massive, because your recipe depends on one raw material. So all these companies are spending millions and millions of dollars based on one recipe. So this being able to meet that requirement, as we say in français, a cahier de charge of technical demand becomes the key.
Let's revisit last point. Let's revisit your quote that I read and said, no, let's talk about the size of the, the nanomaterial, the nanometer, nanosilicon material. We are here now, ready to revolutionize nanosilicon materials manufactured for batteries, a market that's ready to explode. I mean, those are some pretty strong words there, especially when you're so close, ready to revolutionize. But nanosilicon materials manufacturing for batteries. So
it's a factual truth.
How happy are you with where HPQ is today? And I always ask you this, but you're always developing and moving along. How happy and how confident are you, and how confident should shareholders be that you're there?
I am very happy, very confident. Peter and I and the Pyro team and I are very confident. We're getting closer to the goal line. Okay. In this business, you got to get the first down to get to goal line, and that's what it is. I think that was a very important goal line that we needed to address, which was resolving the oxygen issue into it. And now we're getting closer to revolutionize it, being able to do nanoparticles that are going to be, SI pure, is going to change the industry, just in the way that our cost structure is. I've been doing, preparing other material, preparing to change your business. I've been reading a lot of material, and it fundamentally comes down to this. It's one of our slate, but the only process right now that seems to be working to make nanoparticles, for the battery space, all come out of the solar business. So it goes all the way to saline gas that is either burn or radio frequency, which is the technology with a plasma, or is done chemical vapor deposition through the other process that are being used by Group 14 technologies. But all of those people, feedstock is saline gas, which is a material that is probably requires 6 additional steps after our material. Okay. So we're eliminating 6 energy consuming, environmentally unfriendly steps and replacing them with a very simple step. So if that's not game changing, I don't know what it is. It will become game changing the moment we have that external validation that says, okay, these battery runs are really looking very, very good. We're starting to be on the next step. I know it's going to be coming.
Is that where INRS comes in?
That's where they come in, because I always said that I don't want to be dependent on the battery manufacturer. Not that I don't trust them, but I don't trust them.
I don't trust them. I don't trust them. So if all goes well, Bernard, and it looks like, because again, expect in January, and Peter's seems like you guys are pretty much there. You actually say we are here now, so it sounds like you're there. Sometime in Q2, ballparkish, samples should start going out to end users of all kinds, all over the world, all over North America? What is the end of the first half of the year look like?
To be totally honest, as soon as we start making qualifying samples, then we switch over to building the Gen 2. Because my feeling is that if you understand how battery manufacturers work, they start wanting 100 grams. They want a few kilograms. And then at one point it says, okay, we want a few tons of your material to see if it runs on our batch. So, we'll be making the materials for the 100-gram tests, and we got to make sure that we can live up with the more quantity. And that's where the Gen 2 comes into play. So that's really where the ballpark's going to change. Then at the same time, we're going to have the QRR is going to be starting during Q1. So we'll start making materials out of that, probably 4N silicone out of that. And then we might go look at different process to just mill it so we can start sending sample of different size so we can have more options into it. So I think 2022 is going to be an interesting year, probably even more interesting than we thought and hoped that 2021 would be. Okay,
that's interesting.
Because we'll have at least two of those processes in parallel. We'll have the nano reactor working and the QRR working. Blow forbid, unexpected event. I think one last point I wanted people to realize is, and I think that people don't get how much the COVID realities, and then use it there in the COVID situation, has affected. This nano reactor project that we're doing is the second really advanced project I'm doing with Pyro from the beginning. Fume silica, they've done the first part of it, so I can't really vouch for that. But when we did the QRR in the same time lapse, okay, we probably did 35 to 40 tests, and that's the key to resolving this issue, doing multiple tests. Okay, we probably did 40. I think in the entire QRR program in a year and a half, we did 140 tests.
Wow.
With the nano reactor, we've done 14 tests, and I will tell you that there's an indirect cost or impact of the COVID into this. When we're doing the QRR and we were playing around with the technologies and doing some change, a lot of the pieces we needed to redo it, we could get in 24-hour delivery. Okay. Now it's always a guesstimation when the delivery is going to come. So we have to completely change how we do things. We have to start thinking about ordering more. So COVID affected R&D. It required a rethought how you do your R&D as opposed to before. Before it used to be not complicated, same day delivery of stuff.
Yeah.
Now it's whenever you can get it. Don't complain. We'll ship it to you when we can. So that's an impact that was hard to, and still hard to calculate, but it's a reality. It's not a reality that's only affecting HPQ. It's affecting everybody in the industry. So I just wanted to bring that in people's mind.
That makes sense.
To understand how doing R&D in 2021, 2022, when it's not the same thing as doing it in 2018, 2019. But we're reaching the targets.
Last question. The major automobile manufacturers that put in their first order for spherical nanosilicon material. What is the milestone, if it's been decided, at which we are told who that is? Will it be when samples are shipped to them? Will it be when samples are shipped to them and they say they're really happy, ship us more? What's the milestone when we find out who that is? Only because that is pretty great third-party validation. I don't know too many people are in that position.
I think it's going to be them that are going to call the shot on that one. It's not going to be us. My thought process, in which whomever battery manufacturer we keep talking into, and we start sending them samples and they start liking it, they're going to want to kick the tires and take a look at our cost structure, and then we might hear about them differently than what we think. but that's just my humble thought of where we're going with this. That's where I think it's going to go.
All right. I would ask you what's next, but given the fact that you've kind of alluded to it, that final adjustments are expected to be completed in January, and here we are, January the 12th. I'm assuming we're going to see in the next couple of weeks or so. So anything you want to say to everyone until then, or just sit tight because it's a pretty tight window?
There's more ongoing that looks okay. You shouldn't, judge. You can't judge a book by its cover. Basically, there's a lot of things that I've been working on that took longer to fall into place, and they're starting to fall into place now. So we're going to be there's a lot of fun, interesting things that are going to make HPQ as an entire entity, as we move into a technology company, a much more a bigger company. Surprisingly, when we're going to switch over from a resource company to a technology company, then our key assets becomes our patent. So it's gonna be silly, but it's gonna require me to all those patents I bought to actually go through Pyro. Says, okay, let's change the name from Pyro to HPQ. Before.
And by the way, can you put those on your balance sheet? Like at some point, are you going to value those patents and put them on the balance sheet?
They are already on the balance sheet. They're on the with the new rules of accounting. Please don't get me started with this. We can probably have eventually third-party valuation. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't really change everything. And accounting is such a complicated concept for nothing really to gain. It's just it's just more complication than anything else. I think the importance is, can we deliver? Can we make some great stuff with it? Do we have enough patent? Do we have a good protection of our technology, which we believe we do? Because in a certain way, we're just copying and implementing Pyro strategies for doing that. I'm hoping in 2022 to start maybe looking at having our own personal strategy to develop our own patent, but that's something we're looking into. Patents in different, field application, which goes through what we're doing.
All right, my man. Thanks for joining us. This was one where it's kind of like an in-betweener, but I think a lot of shareholders are happy to get the update. A lot of shareholders happy to see some times from there and some specifics that talked about the delays and how you guys overcame those. Yeah, I think that was great as well. And last word to you, unless if it sounds like you got one more thing to say there.
Yeah, I like to people understand. I get the fact that our timelines are difficult to do. So often now I try to wait until we're almost 90% done and say, okay, this is what was happening and made sense. Because if I try to explain everything that we're doing every week, people are going to be more confused. And I think if we learn something about the pandemics is sometimes too much information can be confusing. So I try to keep it, straight circular. I'm going to try to get our communication message tighter. That's going to require me to start thinking and just go more tighter in the information. And the fun part is, as we getting more technical results, it gets to be easier to do. But, we're not going to open our book. I understand that I'm talking to my investors, but also my competitors are watching what I say. So sorry, sometimes we will keep what we say to the most general term and not for people to understand. It's not that I don't trust you shareholders, but there's some people hiding behind the shareholders that might not be people trustworthy.
Or I'm just making a note of that. When I look down, I make notes so I can put them in the notes afterwards. But no, that makes sense. That makes sense. The fact that you're here and still giving us this. By the way, I know you say sometimes the story is difficult to follow, and sometimes it is, but I got to tell you, I'm pretty impressed with the level of sophistication I see amongst the shareholders. There's some really smart people out there who really, really get it. And so once in a while, we get it wrong. It's only natural because you're going into uncharted territory. But for the most part, Bernard, I think you guys done a great job of communicating.
No, they have. And, I appreciate when somebody posts something, even from left field, I'll go take a look at it. It says, oh, okay, this is interesting, not interesting. Applies to, doesn't apply to. No, I think we have a core of investors that really understand it. And I think there's a very, very small minorities of traders that are trying to play on, the complexity of what we're doing. If we were a gold company drilling a gold project, it'd be easy to follow because everybody's accustomed to investing in gold, knows how to do it. In our case, there's a risk, but there's also, and that's the reason it's called R&D, because it's not guaranteed. And the fact that it's not guaranteed is why the government gives us 30% back of the money we invest in doing this, because it's R&D. If it wasn't a risky business venue, the government wouldn't grant us the R&D.
But it's R&D with a kicker, though. This isn't just R&D where you're saying, "Hey guys, we're in the middle of R&D, and we'll see what sticks in a little while." You've already got some pretty big parties in the industry.
Yeah. But
it's R&D with the commercial kicker. It feels like.
Yeah, but all R&D is that. There's a TRL, which is level of advancement. Okay, so we're not at the TRL beginning, which is at the lab where we try to see what sticks in the wall. Okay, but we're advanced at the TRL. But as you move in every one of those TRL, there's always a risk of there can be issues, delays, takes longer, requires, a few neurons, cells of our engineers to be burned trying to figure out the solution to what's going on. And in counterpart of that, by us doing this, we get significant tax credit from the government for doing it. If it was easy, straightforward, directly for production, then you don't get the R&D tax credit.
Of course. Well, look, thanks for joining us. Look forward to seeing you next couple of weeks. Like I said, it's the 12th. We're 18 days away, 2.5 weeks. I'm presuming from what you said in the news release, we're going to see you again. And I don't leave it. I don't take for granted that you might have popped something else on us in the meantime. But in case not, can't wait to have you back in a couple of weeks more. Thanks for this update. Much appreciated, my friend.
You're welcome.
For everybody at home, you've been watching, or if you're listening by podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform, to Bernard Tourillon, CEO of HPQ Silicon Resources, HPQ in Canada, HPQFF in the United States. Do your due diligence. See you next time. Hey guys, this video is over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our channel and never missing another great Agoracom small cap video.